India is going to be a product nation and we just need to play our part. We just needed the world to know that we are creating a truly global world-class product and spreading that message to anyone who is relevant is the founder's job. See the NVIDIA CEO say, I would not do a startup again. I don't know if you heard Jensen's.
Yes.
I'm like, dude, like you're saying this. I see Zomato now, most valuable listed startup, and you see all the journey ups and downs. Mad respect. You've made the world a little better, and that's good enough. Even though if you want me to come in Sasbo and talk about SaaS metrics, don't. There are many people will do it. But if you want me to come and talk about founder mental health, balance, well-being, dealing with stress, please call me. I'll come anytime.
I know that you believe in paying it forward, and this conversation is paying it forward. So we'll begin straight jump into this, a learning for all the entrepreneurs. मेरा है ये हिंदी में बोलूँगी कि अच्छे लोग जीतते हैं, and you for me have won. And you had a startup, CloudCherry, which you sold to Cisco. Take us through that, क्योंकि इससे सबको सीखने को भी all of us will learn that how does this happen.
So my father's in the army. I started my career in the merchant navy. Was not from a tech background. Then I joined my friend's fintech startup. I learned everything about sales, marketing, brand, culture, building a team, building a product there. 7 years in MarketSimplified was my
And
making.
how long were you in merchant navy?
9 years.
Wow.
So 9 years at sea. You don't even have internet there, right? I mean, you have thrice a day you connect to the satellite and download your emails. So it was very disconnected from reality kind of world. But in the 7 years at MarketSimplified, I learned all about high end of tech, sales, marketing, company culture, everything, right? So when I started my own startup, which was also very accidental, I thought I knew everything, and then I realized I knew nothing. I knew nothing about structuring the company, cap table. Sales is one thing, conceptualizing from company strategy to business strategy to product strategy to execution is a whole different game. And you realize even when you're second in command to the founder, it's not like being a founder.
Yeah.
And I never had salary pressure, which is so I learned the hard way what it takes. I thankfully had the support of mentors and peers. But then you realize that when you're the CEO, you're the CEO.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone's there, everyone's doing their best, but there's only one person running the company for a reason. So it was a steep learning curve, of course. Lots of serendipity, lots of luck. Because you said paying it forward, I was really clueless. But then when I got connected to the SaaS community, I discovered two things. One, I'm not the only one. Others are also struggling. But there I discovered mentors who truly I worship, right? So everyone from, if you see the SaaS stars, right? Girish, Pallav, Anish, Manav, Suresh, they were already running, let's say 10 million ARR plus companies. That time, how many companies were there? Like just those, right? But when I saw those people, I also had Mithun of Carrot Lane on my board, right? So great, like Mithun's someone who's always calm and always easy, no matter what the circumstances. So when I saw these people, and more importantly, the SaaS founders I remember in 2015, 16, we had a 3-day offsite. And all of them took 3 days off of their businesses and helped 30, 40 of us founders. They went into every aspect of our business and helped us find all the small things that were wrong, how to optimize product, go to market, everything. Then I walked out of that and I said, why are they doing this? And they all believed that India is going to be a product nation and we just need to play our part. And I was such a beneficiary of this pay it forward that I'd have to be a really poor human being if I didn't pay it forward. So I didn't do anything great. Like I was, let's say, in the middle of those tides and I just went along with it. And I think now it's in the DNA, wherein as the company got built, I told you, right, when we were talking earlier, I moved to the US. I had nothing to give other than I've spent 6 months in the US alone, and anyone planning to move, I had something to tell them, right? Give them a 6-month crystal ball. And that's when I realized you don't need to pay it forward in the most dramatic sense.
Yeah.
Founders have very tactical problems they are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. If you can clear one obstacle a day for a founder, you're unlocking millions of dollars of economic value.
Yeah.
So that's my pay it forward philosophy.
Yeah. For all the founders and SaaS founders and B2B founders, B2C, whoever is looking for an exit, and I know you were not, but it happened to you, and it was an all-cash deal, which is very, very important. It was not billions of dollars, but it was very significant. what were one or two things that you did right? If you could quickly tell us that you got that.
Awesome. So I always say that BizDev is the founder's responsibility from day one. Because, I'll give you an example. Like you may say, oh, my product is better than Salesforce. I'm building something. If Salesforce doesn't know that and acknowledge that, if Salesforce customers don't know that and acknowledge that, then your statement may be technically true but factually incorrect. You know what I'm saying? Like, doesn't matter what you built. Even if you created alchemy, the world needs to know about it. So BizDev is the founder's job. And the founder has to agenda-less network and spread the gospel. Founder has to sell the company to early investors, employees, partners, customers, distributors, what have you, right? So the one thing in hindsight that helped was, look, we took strategic money from Cisco. Obviously, Cisco acquired us. For me, it was a great go-to-market channel. I had nowhere in mind did I have the thought of selling my company. I thought we'll build a public company, right? But when you look in hindsight, we went in, we engaged Cisco on go-to-market. I moved to the Bay Area, stayed close to San Jose.
So you tell this. So they were your customers first?
So they actually, Cisco found us through the Microsoft accelerator. So you can do the math. Right? Many serendipitous moments have happened here. So they found us, and the very embarrassing fact is when we first got a call from Cisco, said, they want to invest in you. So I said, and I feel so embarrassed, but I'll say it on record because you got to be authentic. I said, look, you make hardware and stuff, like what's your interest in customer experience? so I think Joydeep was the person, he said, I'll send you a link, why don't you see the link and then we'll talk. Then he sent me a link and that's when I realized Cisco is the largest contact center sort of provider on the planet. And I'm like, oh my God, you need to,
you were
general
being
knowledge.
Authentic.
Yeah, I was being authentic, but sometimes authentic, borderline between, thin line between authentic and just plain stupid. So I was like, I need to do my research. Then I said, great, this is awesome. What a great go-to-market channel for me. We took money from them, moved to the US, stayed close to Cisco, worked very hard on engaging the Cisco team, primarily for go-to-market. We agreed to 2 board observers from Cisco, because to my mind, 1 observer or 2 or 3, it's like, you can't get pedantic about these things.
Yeah.
I want more execs from Cisco to see my company,
Yeah.
so they can give me access to that insane go-to-market channel that is Cisco, right?
Yeah.
The interesting part is, we got acquired before the go-to-market got fructified, right? So go figure. But none of that was for an acquisition. When the time came, somebody else gave us an acquisition offer. We told Cisco, the first time it came, we didn't go ahead with it. When it came the second time, we just told Cisco, the offer is great and we think it's a good time. And then Cisco came back and said, no, we are also in the race. So the main thing was engaging your ecosystem.
Yeah.
Cisco was not the only partner I engaged. We engaged Salesforce. We had a great go-to-market with Microsoft. I had the privilege of meeting Satya Nadella in Seattle, right in Redmond. Like, those things were not done with any intention.
Yeah.
We just needed the world to know that we are creating a truly global world-class product. And spreading that message to anyone who is relevant is the founder's job. And if I just distill down to one, founder needs to evangelize their product, the greatness of their product, even their culture, even their people, to anyone who matters. Because how serendipity works is not in your control. Yeah. But the more, I always say, density is directly proportional to chance of serendipity. Density of your actions, of your network, of your whatever. So you need to create density, then serendipity will happen. You can't wait for it to happen sitting at home. That's my lesson. Yeah.
You also faced a lot of hardships while building CloudCherry, and you were, always also running out of money. So quickly take us through that also.
I keep telling people, look, I'm not even educated and blah, blah, blah. And then one day when founder came and said, Vinod, you're very humble. I said, okay. Why do you say I'm humble? He says, look, I see on your LinkedIn, you want Bits Pilani and you still don't acknowledge it. So I laughed because I did a diploma in nautical sciences from Bits Pilani. Okay. When I went to a BITSA event, I first went on stage and said, guys, I'm not an engineering graduate. I want you to know. So the point is sometimes don't confuse what I'm saying with humility. It's the absolute truth, okay? So when coming back to your question, see, the struggles, I always say the company succeeded in spite of me, not because of me, right? I did many things right that I'm truly proud of. But as a founder, you realize there's a UB40 song, the more I learn, the less I know about before, right? The lyrics, that's true for a founder. Every time you think you know something, you realize, geez, there's a zillion other things I don't know.
Yeah. It
could be with finance, it could be with structuring a company, go-to-market, customer behavior, technology, what have you. So it's a constant losing battle of what you don't know. And I felt the pressure of that, right? The first time I couldn't pay salaries, I remember turning up to office at 11:30 in the morning, like in trepidation, because I told you, like, I hired all my people. People listening, there's folks who work for me. I knew what your financial obligations were, what bills you were paying, was money easy for you, hard for you. Knowing that is great because we created a true family kind of culture. But it is hard when you don't pay salaries, because now it's no longer that I didn't pay you your salary. Now I know that the bill you're footing for somebody else, you're not able to pay that because of me. So I show up at 11:30 to the office, and these kids are high energy. Like, the office is buzzing with energy. And then I say, man, like, this crew is worth fighting for. That team's with me, been with me at CloudCherry, Cisco, Uniphore. Like, that's my crew for life, right? So when things don't go as well as expected, it does hit you hard, right? My wife spoke, when I sold the company, I wrote, in the last I said, my invisible co-founder was my wife, right? Because your partner takes disproportionate amount of stress because at least you understand what's happening, right? But that person doesn't have all the context, but feels all the stress, right? So there was a time when, like, for an entire weekend, like close to 3 days, couldn't get out of bed. Like, I was just in bed, curled up in the blanket saying, I'm not getting up. And, I got my meals in bed, thankfully, which I couldn't hardly eat, but it's very hard, right?
Yeah.
And founders need to acknowledge that. When I see a founder, I think I took the example we discussed, like, I see Zomato now, most valuable listed startup, and you see all the journey ups and downs. Mad respect, right? It's really, really hard. Like, it's not for everybody. When you see the NVIDIA CEO say, I would not do a startup again. I don't know if you heard Jensen's.
Yes.
I'm like, dude, like, you're saying this. So there is truth to that. They're not trying to be overly modest or trying to whatever. They acknowledge that despite the overwhelming success, this is not for everyone. It's not an easy life, right? And if you sign up for it, you're going to have real bad days. With few good days in between, you'll get one award, raise funding, 3 days, everyone loves you. But for the most part, it's struggle. And I'll stop with, I think the hard thing about hard things, there's a line, life is struggle. That's it. Like, no prefix, no suffix. Life is struggle, just consume it. So it was
like Buddha said, no, life is suffering. And one has to figure out how to deal with the
And here
suffering.
you chose it. Like, there's suffering in life, and then you choose to be an entrepreneur.
There is a general, very good fervor, optimism, attitude about you, and I'm assuming that it is a constant in your life, and of course, and that also makes me feel that the heat and the pressure would also affect you a lot more emotionally, because you are a hard person. So what are one or two things that you did in those moments? Because and today we can look back and say, because it's such a success story.
See, I've always felt I think nothing is more important to startup than culture, not even product. And I'll tell you why. Product changes. Culture is what ensures your team does what is right for the customer, for the partner, whatever, right? All the hard decisions are easier when you're culturally bound. And the reason I bring up culture is the one thing that makes all of it worth it is you look around with your team. You look at the people who've backed you in the journey. I read a tweet years ago. I don't know who tweeted, not mine, of course. It says, the tweet was a question, if I'm not wrong, and someone can reference it. They said, or they asked, is it more dangerous or riskier to be employee of an early stage startup than the founder? And I reflected upon it, and it's true. Being an employee in an early stage startup where you're making compromises in salary or this and that, or working, is actually riskier than being a founder, right? Because the upside is capped because you have, employee equity, but the downside is same. In fact, in some cases, the downside may be more. So these people who follow you, charge up the hill, following you blindly, that is the single reason why it's all worth it. It doesn't matter what goes wrong. You got to do it for your people. And if you have the right people, if you have the right culture, that is the one thing that should inspire you to say, it's worth fighting for.
Vinod, what you're saying is reminding me of Vedanta philosophy.
Okay.
One of
I haven't read
it. So Vedanta says that to be generally very happy in life, and one of the quick tricks is be there and do something which is beyond yourself for the other.
But I completely agree. I think it's cultural in our DNA to think of life like this.
Yeah.
And I genuinely think that fulfillment for self, how far does it take you? how big a car can you buy? How big a house can you buy? All those are important. I love the
we
good
all
things in
want an
life.
exit, and now you've got the exit.
No, I like the good things in life. I'm not trying to sound like I don't. But you realize the diminishing returns on that kicks in very early.
Yeah.
But when you look around and you say, people who traversed that path with me, journeyed with me, trusted in me blindly, are living great lives, doing well in their career, they're happy financially, materially, spiritually. When they look back and say, now we know what culture means. Like my teams came and told me, look, now wherever we go now, we think of culture first, right? And now we understand what it means. It makes me immensely proud. And you have to be a little more than about yourself. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. But little more than, if your impact is a little more than what you did for yourself, you've made the world a little better, and that's good enough.
And that I can see in you, and that's why I brought that subject. So tell us now, what are you doing now after this exit? Where are you? What are you doing?
They say, no, there's nothing more expensive than free. Sometimes you get this free gift, oh, it's free, and then you go to redeem the free, then you have to pay money, and then travel there, then realize, hold on, can you give me the paid version, please? So people think you sell a company, you'll be free, right?
Yeah.
And I've never been busy in my life, okay? So I'm committed to 4 things, I think, today. 5, I'll tell you. So the first is, I'm on the leadership team at Uniphore, which is one of India's hottest startups.
Yes.
Umesh is a very close friend. When I sold my company, I decided never to work for anybody ever again. Umesh is, let's just say, a compelling personality. he browbeat me into coming in. I mean, I wanted to, when I had the chance of sneaking into Girish's IPO thing through the back door at NASDAQ, I felt great pride, like it was my company. So Umesh said, why don't we do the same at Uniphore? So I'm doing what I can there. I'm also on the governing council of SaaS Boomi, which is, as I say, my greatest privilege. I'm also a venture advisor partner with March Capital. So that keeps me fairly busy. I've also invested in startups, and I'm in general open door for startups. Like my house, whenever I tell my who's coming home, founder, she's okay, say no more. So she knows the stereotype of what a founder looks like. So host a lot of founders, do a lot of work, do a lot of SaaS Boom. US is a fairly frenetic pace of work. So I'm excited with that. And I'm committed to playing cricket recreationally to the level of thinking it's life. So those 5 things keep me fairly busy, besides family, of course. So.
And you're not based here now in India.
I'm in Pleasanton in the Bay Area.
Yeah. So
though you tell someone in the Bay Area, Pleasanton is in the Bay Area, they might dispute it. It's like, when you say I live in Delhi, then you say you're in Gurgaon, and they're like, hey dude, that's not Delhi. So Pleasanton, I'm told, is not the Bay Area, but if you're looking from this distance, it is the Bay.
1 or 2 things, if you reflect back, you say, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, were things that you did right, and 1 or 2 things now, if you had said, like, listen, I hope I knew it before.
So right culture, like I'll say this again and again and again, because when you start a company, we started in customer experience management, and for the first year, I didn't know Medallia existed. Medallia, if I'm not wrong, was the first company that went public in the customer experience space. So I was that ignorant, right? So all that you can catch up on. In fact, not knowing your big 800-pound gorilla competition is good, because you don't over-index on them. You're building what you think the world needs. I started the company because I felt customer experience was an unsolved problem. And hence I built what I felt was the best product ever built in customer experience measurement or tracking. So that's one, culture, right? Because that's what, the other thing I think we did well, and SaaS companies need to realize, is branding and personal branding. I always say in a B2C company, if the customer doesn't know the CEO, it's a good thing, because B2C, then everyone's throwing slander at the CEO, right? In a B2B company, if the customer doesn't know the CEO, it's criminal, because CEO is the #1 sales rep of the company in perpetuity. So we always, I felt, had an aura, a projection of CloudCherry, which was above and beyond and bigger than what we actually were. And SaaS companies need to do that. So long as it's not untruthful, which is you're projecting what you're not, but you have to project a larger persona
you don't
than
have to
you
hide.
Exactly, right? And CEO has to be selling. You have to always be out. I thought we did those 2 things pretty well, right? Since you said 2. Poorly, like, to be honest, like cap table and structuring. Like, I genuinely have said this privately and publicly. I genuinely feel that we could have structured the cap table a whole lot better. It's a longer conversation on how we got where we got. I genuinely feel that the people who build the company, who commit day and night to it, should hold the maximum equity, right? I think that's something, in fact, interestingly enough, and the VCs who came in actually corrected the cap table, just so you know.
Wow.
Right? It's not a case of VCs owning too much. It's like VCs coming in, force creating ESOP pools and saying, no. The founder and the, founding team has to have, or like Girish jokes about this. He says, you're the only founder I know whose equity went up every round of funding. There's material truth to that statement, okay? But that's also because of where I started, just so you know. So I think that's very important because you have to understand, you have to assume many rounds of dilution before you go public. So if founders and key members don't have enough equity, at some point in time, the incentive is absent, right? That is very important. The second thing I also think is, which I've said in many, many forums, product market fit is for each market, right? Your product, everything about product, meaning product, brand, positioning, changes per market. So if you're building for the US, start in the US. Don't do $1 million ARR in India and then go to the US, because now you build team structures, delivery, culture, messaging, processes for India. Now you go to the US and now these guys starting to work at nights and now you're changing this and now everything starts to break, right? So if I had to build for the US, I'd build for the US day zero.
Okay.
My first customer had to be, that's what I would do.
And if you're starting in India, just technically just asking, if you're starting in India also and you want to do US, then you should have a separate team and entity.
So it's two kinds of companies, right? So if you're doing SMB mid-market, like Freshworks, then location doesn't matter, right? Because customers come online, click, get the product, access immediately. If you're doing mid-market and upwards, enterprise, where there's a sales process, there's outbound sales, you need to configure the product, you need to deploy it, you need to do integrations. It's a 3-month deployment, so to speak. Then you've got to be in the market where the customer is. That's the difference, right? You could do an SMB, global SMB SaaS company out of India till you're, I don't know, thousands employees. I'm just making up the number, right? You probably need nobody in the US and yet have millions of dollars of revenue from the US. But mid-market and upwards, where a physical sales process is involved, whether virtual or in person, then you need to be in the market you're selling into. Very important. Especially today, if you're selling in Europe for whatever reason, you need to be aware of their GDPR requirements. Selling in the US, there's other requirements, right? So you can't say I'm processing data, but my team's in India. Nobody is going to let data leave Europe and go to India for processing, right? Or for whatever work. So that's why enterprise businesses need you to be in the market you're selling in or growing in. SMB you can build from anywhere.
Do you think that the world has a little bit changed and online you can do your sales and do stuff, or you still have to be present? And especially for US market because you're there.
So I think you have to optimize to do remotely the things you can, right? Like I wouldn't put roles in the US that don't need to be in the US. Your demand gen roles, your ops roles and so on and so forth. But if you really, maybe someone can cross-reference this data. I actually think air travel has increased post-pandemic.
Yes,
right?
It has.
Everyone's flying. There has never been a greater time to make a case for the value of human interaction and the value of human relationships, especially in enterprise businesses. In enterprise businesses, you may even land a deal remotely. More power to you, right? You may say, I'll do a 250K. There are startups in India that do 250, 300K ACV deals remotely, right? But for large enterprise, even there, even if you close it remotely, I'd still go visit them. Someone's paying you 250K. I'd put a face to the name. I might see you once a year, but this is who I am. Thank you for your trust in me. I'm all the way in, I'm just making this up, Surat, India. But I want you to know this is the company you're dealing with, right? Enterprise, there is no choice. You have to be there in person. It is with your customers. It's with your employees. It's with your investors. It's with your partners. There is nothing more meaningful than in-person FaceTime. So you can build a business process with being remote as much as you need, but there are elements of your process that need to be in person. And if you get into an enterprise and you want to nurture a relationship and grow, you don't do that remotely.
You know, what is that one habit that you've personally, one habit that you worked on yourself and improved, which you, and one habit which you're still dealing with and is a, you know, ho nahi raha hai, matlab tough hai?
I had so many good habits that I've since lost. So the list of habits that I'm struggling with are longer than the list of habits I've built.
Oh, okay? Really?
So I was a voracious reader. Like I could not sleep without reading. And like when I was in Merchant Navy, the way I went to sleep was read and you pass out with your book.
You will have to read only. No, what
that
else will you do?
That is fair. Fair point. Fair point. But this mobile phone has destroyed my discipline 100%.
You didn't have phone there also, like all the time.
No, that is true. So I would love to. I still think I read a fair bit, right? I'm usually reading 7-8 books simultaneously because it depends on what your interest is, right?
Yeah.
I'm reading a book on colonization of Mars, Bill Bryson on the body, then someone gave me the book Comfort Crisis. So I'm reading all these books simultaneously, depending on where your mood's at, I essentially read. So reading's a habit, I think that's plateau. Like I'd like to do more. The one thing I'm not proud of at all, I need to do significantly better on health and fitness. Like completely underinvested in that. I literally know what I have to do and I don't do it and I'm not proud of it. Definitely
And
need
why
to
is
do
that?
more.
Because you don't find time.
So thing is, you tell me to play sports 7 days a week, I'll play 7 days a week. You tell me to run on the treadmill for 20 minutes, I'm like, what is this thing worth? You know? So that's what it is. Or I just need someone who just like gives me the danda and says, dude, come on, let's go, right? Like my wife is like 2 hours a day committed to fitness.
Wow.
And she tries so hard to get me out. I'm like, ab meeting hai, ye hai, kal raat late ho gaya, you know? So I would not urge anyone to do that.
You feel normal like all of us.
Yeah, no, I play sport and I'm very active and I'd like to think I'm good. I have a health check tomorrow. I'll find out where my theory meets reality. But I think the other thing that I've optimized for, I know what I bring uniquely to the world. I like bringing people together. So every aspect of my life, be it community like Sasbhumi, be it my friends and my neighbors, be it people I love and care about, I'm more consciously trying to bring people together.
Yeah.
I told you about the Sasbhumi BBB, right? The beer, biryani, and brainstorm.
Yeah.
And for full disclosure, we have Ruh Afza too. Like, so
Yeah.
we don't discriminate against.
So everyone
anybody.
knows that they can come to your house.
Absolutely. There's veg biryani and there's non-alcoholic. But it's basically the idea is a safe space in my backyard on one weekend a month where founders visiting can bring tactical issues. We crowdsource what the top of mind tactical issues are. And we come and have an open, unconference style conversation on what you can do. If you went away with clarity on one tactical issue plaguing your business, we've unlocked, as I said, millions of dollars of economic value, right?
Yeah.
In a founder's life. So those things I know I do well, I find joy in, right? And that's I'm doing more and more of. As opposed to being ad hoc and chalta hai about it, I'm trying to put more structure around it.
Yeah.
Right? But my reading habit I need to work harder on, and I'm half and half. The thing I really need to work on, now that I've said it in public, I'm gonna go back and hold myself accountable and work harder on fitness. Because a founder told me, I won't take his name, very well skilled. He said, any founder you must start with 3 things: a lawyer, a therapist, and a trainer. So I think a founder needs all 3, depending on which stage of growth you're in.
Yeah.
But the therapist is not a joke, right?
Yes.
The founder, mental health and well-being is critically important. Again, another founder, I won't quote his name, but I think he would be happy to be quoted. Very scaled founder, doing really, really well. He told me a long story, which I didn't have time for, but he said, hey, Vinod, if you want me to come in Sasbhumi and talk about SaaS metrics, don't. There are many people who will do it. But if you want me to come and talk about founder mental health, balance, well-being, dealing with stress, please call me, I'll come anytime, right? And that tells me someone who's so successful, one of the top SaaS entrepreneurs in the country, in the US-India corridor, when he says that this is the topic I'd like to talk about, it tells me what's the process reality of entrepreneurship. You manage your stress, you manage your culture, you manage your own mental sanity, right? Then everything else that's out of your control is truly out of your control. Like if you can't see a technology trend evolve, too bad. Like I can't coach you into seeing beyond, across corners, right? But people can be helped and coached around managing stress, right? Managing people, manage what you can manage, and then you have less time to worry about things you can't control in any case. So why worry about those things?
Thank you so much, Vinod. And again, I go back to there's a lot of learning, but I see you as a sailor. I see you as a sailor who's sailing the life journey in your most optimal,
thank you,
and happy and giving way. Yeah.
I do
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me here.